Welcome to the JobPack podcast, where we get practical insights from job seekers and professionals in less than 10 minutes. I'm Debashish Mishra, and today I'm pleased to welcome to the show job search expert and founder of international job search community, JobMob, Jacob Scher. Jacob, welcome, and tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. It's a pleasure to be here, Debashish. So I started JobMob back in 2006. I was on my own job search, and I wanted to learn about blogging and I just explore and share my experiences, and that's how it got started. And here we are now in 2021. It's been a long, long journey with hundreds and hundreds of articles and reached millions and millions of people around the world sharing job search advice on the blog, always with a bit of humor. It's really important to me to make people laugh. It's hard enough to be job searching. So just an article a week and looking to help as many people as possible find their next job.
That's awesome. I really enjoy what you post, which is how I ended up finding you. So thank you so much for that. Now,
Terrific.
What are you seeing now in the job market?
So JobMob has an international community, as you mentioned, with a skew towards America, but there are definitely some trends that we're seeing around the world right now. Of course, with the pandemic, we know that there was a big shift to remote working. By now, it's been almost a year, depending on where you are, but it's sometimes gone by. So companies have more or less figured out if they're going to be able to figure out remote working or if they're not going to be able to figure it out. There are still lots of people looking for jobs remotely, and there's still many remote working jobs available. There's a lot of reskilling that's still going on. That trend, which accelerated when the pandemic started hitting people hard, really hasn't slowed down, frankly. If anything, it's still going, not just stronger, but it's still picking up as people appreciate other kinds of skills they can add to their arsenal. They see demand changing. But that is a key term, demand. And so it really is important that people keep an eye out for demand as things change, depending on where they are. But still a lot of remote work. In some places, there are companies that have opened up again, and so people have gone back to work part-time, not part-time, but like they're in the office part of the time, I should say. But it really depends on whether there are lockdowns in the area and people are sent back home. And it's a bit of a situation that's constantly evolving, I guess you would say.
Sure. No, that's a very important perspective, especially internationally, because I think in the U.S. we have a very skewed perspective, but clearly what you're seeing is very similar across the globe.
Yeah.
And I've certainly heard a number of experts, yourself included, talk about the need for people to be able to pivot in this job market. And how do you think job seekers can really stand out, when there are so many people looking for work?
Well, it's always something that people need to be concerned about is how they're coming across to potential recruiters and employers. So one of the classic things that you can do, a best practice, I guess you could say, is to leverage social media, pick a platform and just start sharing your expertise on that platform. Nobody expects you to come across as an expert after only being on a platform for 3 days. Well, and you can take it further. Many people have been on Facebook for years by now, but they haven't necessarily been using it to show themselves off as an expert in their field, which is okay. So just pick a Facebook group, a LinkedIn group that is relevant to your field, and just start becoming much more active in that group. And people will start to pay attention to what you have to say because they see that you clearly have things to say and you are an expert in your field. You're showing it to them. So that's definitely something worth doing. I would also make an effort to be even more focused than that, is to pay attention to, obviously, have an idea where you're looking for a job. Go for a Facebook group or LinkedIn groups based on where you want to work, and be directed. So in other words, don't just randomly choose a Facebook group based on your expertise. Look for one that is relevant to the place that you want to be working in, and that should also focus your search as well.
That's really good insight. I wish I'd had that when I was looking, because I did not do that.
Well, there really are. There's so many. I've done a roundup a few times on JobMob, the top 100 job search or the top 100 Facebook groups for job seekers. And you have groups now where there's 1 million people in the group. And I'm not exaggerating, there's literally 1 million people in that group. And so they're all not there every day, but you can easily get lost among thousands and thousands of posts every day. But on the other hand, what that also means is that there are people asking questions, and you can very quickly just start answering questions. People will start voting up your answers or liking them. And yeah, fairly quickly, you can get recognized. If anything, being active in a big group can get you recognized more quickly sometimes than a small group. On the other hand, a small group with the right kinds of people can also lead quickly to leads. Because people tend to avoid small companies, small businesses. They tend to focus more on large companies. But small businesses are hiring many more people than big businesses are. And so if you pay attention to that as well, then you can get hired much more quickly usually. You're going to have less competition. Simple as that.
Makes total sense. Now, what's the best advice you could give to job seekers right now?
Well, for me, it doesn't change. Focus on demand. Where is there the most demand for the skills that you have to offer? The simple reality is that if there is a shortage for people like you, it will make hiring that much easier for you. People will be bending over themselves to get to you. You'll have more job offers. You'll be able to negotiate more easily, and it'll just make a job search for you a joke. And in fact, most people struggle with job search. You'll be saying to yourself, wow, this is amazing. I should do this more often because you'll have so many offers being thrown your way. You'll get to pick and choose what you want. So, but you really have to do your research, look where there's the most demand, and put yourself out there for that demand, to meet that demand. Make sure people can see that you are able to meet that demand. That's true any day of the week, any year of the week, any year, any time, pandemic, no pandemic, that's true. People don't think that way. They don't make the effort to do that. And if you can do it, then it will prove itself very, very quickly.
Definitely, for sure. That makes a lot of sense to me. Really appreciate that. Now, just out of curiosity, what was your first job?
So, this is how I learned the advice I just gave you. My first career job, I have a tech background, and I started learning about the internet back when I was in university, which is in the 90s. And so by the time I came to look for a job, I put out my resume to a bunch of places. At the time, the internet was booming. So we're talking about .com boom, like back in the late 90s, right? They couldn't find people. People didn't know how to program websites, create websites. People just didn't know, but I did, okay? And so overnight, I sent out 15 resumes. I had 7 replies the next day. I had 4 job offers within a week and a half. Okay? And this is someone who had never looked for a job before. It was insane. And so, yeah, I knew there was demand. I knew how to meet that demand. I put out a resume that showed I can meet that demand, and boom, I got crazy, crazy responses. And I started working my first job, which was for Amazon.com as a web developer, pretty soon after that.
Very cool.
That's it
really
was. It's a great story, but yeah, we're going to keep it short.
I appreciate it. And I really appreciate you coming onto the show, Jacob. Thank you so much for sharing your insights today.
Thanks so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Jacob Scher, founder of JobMob and Share Select Media. I'll have Jacob's contact information in the show notes. And I also want to thank you for tuning in to the podcast. JobPack is a virtual job club that connects job seekers to accelerate job seeking success. You can find out more about it at jobpack.co. You can subscribe to the podcast there or on other major podcasting platforms. And I want to close by reminding you that job seeking is hard. Don't do it alone. Join the pack. And we'll see you next time.